right, so we're in the Sefer Nefesh Shimshon Shabbos Kodesh, page Daled, or page 10 in English. Pinui Halev lekabbalas Pnei HaShabbos. Hashem Yisbarach. Clearing your heart out, sometime, to receive the countenance of HaKadosh Baruch. Atanavin madua yeshna halacha shel Kabbalah Shabbos davka. You have to understand now, why is there a halacha of Kabbalah Shabbos? Yeshnam shnei sugei mitzvos. There are two categories of mitzvos. Berov ha-mitzvos, in majority of mitzvos, kishmekayim and osan, when you fulfill those mitzvos, kigon she'ochlam kezayis, like you eat a kezayis, matzah, o manichim tefillin, or you place the tefillin on. Not missing anyone. Right. Or you put the tefillin on. So all those things there's two components. So there's another kind of mitzvah. So let's say like you eat matzah, you have to eat a kazayas. You put tefillin on, right? You're mitasek, you're engaged in a mitzvah. There's another mitzvah, shalosh pa'amim b'shana yira'eh kol zucharcha pnei Hashem elokecha kol ma asher yivchar. 3 times a year you will see the face of God in the place that I choose, that He will choose. Mitzvahs re'iyas pnei Hashem b'Pesach Shavuos Sukkos, the shalosh regalim as we call them. Kan kishmekayimim es ha-mitzvah holchem l'bai beis ha-mikdash. When we fulfill the mitzvah, we go to the temple. Ein ze rak kiyum mitzvahs Hashem. It is a fulfillment of the mitzvah of Hashem. Elj mekablim es pnei Hashem, but we receive the face of Hashem, the countenance of Hashem. Zo kesher ishim Hashem. So the two components are the ma'aseh mitzvah, the physical component mitzvah, and then there's the kiyum mitzvah of connecting to Hashem. In brisker terms, we talk about ma'aseh and kiyum and all those things, but here we're talking about the action of mitzvah and what it represents. What are we trying to accomplish? Kach hi gam mitzvah Shabbos Kodesh. That's a Shabbos. Shabbos zui mitzvah bo nitztavenu lintso kesher ishim Hashem Yisbarach, to acquire a personal relationship with God. Shanach mekabel mitzvah Shabbos. And by the way, this is one of the things that I think a lot of teenagers and frankly everyone struggles with. And how do I make a personal connection with Hashem when I'm doing all these things that I'm not allowed to do, and I can't do this in Shabbos, and I can't do this in Shabbos, and it's hard to feel the spiritual component of Shabbos. But that's part of the mitzvah also. Kihi gam mitzvah Shabbos Kodesh zuhi ha-mitzvah bo nitztavenu limtso kesher ishi. Shanachnu mekablim Shabbos. When we receive the Shabbos, anachnu mekablim es pnei ha-shechina. We receive the face of the Shechina. As milot hapiut boi kala. Now we say this when we say Kabbalat Shabbat, Friday night, and we say lechododi, and the words end with boi kala, boi kala. Please come in, our bride. Come in, our bride. Shabbos is us, the Jewish people are our bride. Shabbos was our mate. Remember, HaKadosh Baruch Hu set us up together. Yesh appears, you made the shidduch. Shabbos nikros kala. On the resume, you put the shidduch resume for Shabbos. It's like, you have to keep, can't do these malachos, and you're not allowed to do this, and you can't drive, and you're not allowed to check your text messages, and you can't do this. And all of a sudden, the shidduch prospects went really down, and we're the only ones who selected Shabbos. So, yesh appears Shabbos nikros kala. What does it mean that Shabbos is called the kala? Yesh appears shechina nikros kala. Some say that Shabbos is the one that's called kala, and others say it's not talking about Shabbos. Who's the kala? The shechina, the divine presence. It's all like turning Hashem and Kiviyachol into the bride.
It's kind of one and the same. Shabbos.
Okay.
Isn't it like the whole point of Shabbos is Kedusha and to just make that connection?
Right. And we are, okay, so on the technical level, what we're doing is we're resting because Hashem rested. So we're making connection to Hashem because we're trying to do what Hashem did. So when the Gemara says, Afata, Afhu Chanun, Afata Chanun, He's merciful, you have to be merciful. You have to be, you're right. You have to be Rachum. He's Rachum. So when we are Domet to Hashem, we resemble God. When we do mitzvahs, also we're trying to create a connection with Hashem. So it's yes, there's a similarity to Hashem. So in that respect, this Shabbos is the experience of godliness because He rested. It's also accepting the Zeret Mitzrayim. There's another component to it. Shabbos Nikros Kala. Both are called kala. That's and this is what you're saying. Each are the same. If receiving the Shabbos is the face of the Shechina, then both of them can be compared to the kala, to the bride. Now, Ta'aru lachem Yehudi. Shehaya me'od asuk, v'lo haya lo panai liknot mitzvot, matzos, rather. A person, let's say, imagine for yourself a Jew who is very busy and doesn't have time to buy matzos. Magilo Seder, comes the night of the Seder, l'chulam yesh matzos, rak lo ayin. And there is none for this one person. Mechusar bereira, and missing breira, missing without any option. Hu nigesh el shachein, he goes to the neighbor. Dofek bedelas, he knocks on the door. Mavakish mit matzos. He says, "Do you have any matzos?" Shachachti liknos, I forgot to buy. Umitaritz says, Atzma explains himself. Hare busha uchlima tachas panav. Wouldn't even be embarrassed if Pesach came and the one thing he forgot was to buy matzos, right? It's not like, oh, I forgot to buy gefilte fish. Do you have any extra in the jar or the slime? I forgot to buy matzos. That's the only thing you had to do. Minei hagam shizu mamash busha. Yes, even though it is embarrassing. Achulo heliv kan mishu. Hamatzos einon ne'lavos mikach shelo kana osan lilel seder. The matzos themselves, what do they experience? What's their reaction? They're indifferent, right? The matzos are fine with it. Reminds me of this story, is a Hasidic story that's told about different rabbis in the DP camp. It was one who was preparing all the matzos that year, and they only had enough flour to make one matzah per person. So they made a limit. Everyone only gets one matzah. So at some point during the day, someone came by and said, "My Rebbe insists on having two, right? He has to have two." So they said, "But how could it be? Chutzpah, right? In a year like this, in a time like this, you're demanding two matzos." He said, "One matzah." I don't know. Well, he's a very chashuv person. He needs two. Went back and forth. And the one shamish from the Rebbe who was distributing the matzah felt okay. Maybe he really needs two. And they gave him a second matzah. So Erev Pesach, 2 minutes before Pesach started, the shamish came back with one of the matzahs. He says, "What happened?" He says, "Am I correct? Was my Rebbe correct?" He says, "What? Did you give away your last one?" So yes. So he took an extra one to save it aside for the Rebbe who was distributing to all the others. It's actually in the new Journeys 5 album. Not Journey. Journey is the A.B. Rottenberg music project, just came out a few months ago. So they have a song about this story by Avram Fried. It's really beautiful. Who wouldn't prepare Erev HaSeder, right? So, but the matzah, get to the matzahs, no, there's no impact. Let's say a person's parents are coming for Shabbos. Nagia Yom Chamishi, Kevet, Shat, Shishi. And all of a sudden, there's a train that arrives at 6 p.m. on Thursday. Vine Sofko Sofa Chareha Derech Harucha Avru Ayefim Pitashushim Himagim Vavachad Lo Mechake Lehem Pitachane. They're exhausted, they're tired. It's 6 p.m. Right? They came in this late train, and nobody waited at the bus stop for them. Hemnis Kashrim Livnam, they called their son. O Nenach, Oi, Shachachti, I forgot. Tov. And Kvar Megim so they get to the house. Yotzim Mamonit, they get out of the cab, they call him, "Hello, Mishub Vayet? Anyone home?" What happens? And they say, Mayashim Nishmas Atshuva, and they hear a tshuva, they can hear the response. And Kirega Kulam, it's funny. Kirega Kulam Asukim. Everyone's doing the same thing, right? The whole world is listening to a shir on their way to a shir. So, Mayashim Nishmas Atshuva, Kirega Kulam Asukim near Nitrae Ha'erev Liad Shulchan HaShabbos. So, Meisham, so from over there, they hear the answer. We're all busy getting, I guess, Nitra ha'erev liyad shulchan haShabbos. Shabbos v'imam magil boker. Father and mother come in the morning. Ozvim akol v'hocham l'kavos p'neim. They go, they drop everything, they come to receive their faces, to receive their parents. Davar rishon yishlomar yafa shalom. Tate neshika, to give a kiss. Lavgin yachas ishi. I don't know how to translate this.
Yachas ishi would be ishi is personal. Yachas is relationship.
This is
Yeah.
like give them kiss, bring them into the house.
Yeah.
Anything else would hurt.
Lavachi hareze elboni ishi klape horim. Anything short of this would be an insult. Imroim hahorim. We have a blank spot here, but something benam lo mamtinim lahofasam. They see that their children are not waiting to greet them. Hem they love him. Lifamim hem yitfsu. Here we're missing words here.
Yechapsu.
Yeah, well, it's print. Yechapsu lahem makom acher. They're going to find another place to stay. Litareach ba b'Shabbos. To stay there on Shabbos. Why should I stay there, right? They don't have to be there specifically. Shabbos Kodesh nichnas lebeitenu. Shabbos enters our house. V'anachnu asukim, we're busy. Hashem Yisparach Magid lebeitenu. God arrives to our homes. Motzi otanu asukim b'achanot acheret l'Shabbos. We're achanot l'Shabbos. He's finding us doing the last minute things for Shabbos. Adayin lo muchanim l'Shabbos. We're not ready. Lo mitzapim b'yasa. We haven't been waiting for Shabbos to arrive. Haneh kazu. Hanhaga kazu. Mevatas choser ha'aracha kalape Shabbos. It shows that we really didn't value what Shabbos was, because why weren't we waiting for it with open arms? Why weren't we anticipating its arrival? We didn't love it sufficiently. And Kiviyachol Kadosh Baruch Hu has somewhere else they can go. It doesn't need to be by us specifically. We're supposed to be waiting for him. This is the imagery of not being makabel pnei Shabbos. This is why there's a mitzvah or an enhanced mitzvah to do so. Okay, therefore, minhag Yisrael hu. Shkasher nichneses Shabbos omrim shir hashirim. What do we do when Shabbos enters? There's actually the Sfardim do this, and we have it in our Sidurim as well. We don't always do it, but we recite the shir hashirim on Friday. I know that I think Tzipor used to do this all the time, so she knows shir hashirim by heart. Ein zadin ella minhag. This is not a din. This is a minhag. It's a custom. Ulaya mashmos amunachos bohi. Shir hashirim kulo mevate at yishikenim shikos piu ki tovim dodech miyayin. That shir hashirim expresses the love story between us and God, which is a request to kiss me. We ask Hashem that he should give us a kiss. Kamo hamashal shekasher ba'im abba ve'ima nostim lahem neshika. When the father and mother arrive, we give them a kiss. And we become priests and Levites. Zui neshika ben shamayim v'aretz, and it's a embrace between a kiss between shamayim and aretz, between kodesh and chol. It's the era of Shabbos is that moment in which we have the interplay between holy and mundane, right? Also Havdalah is like that also, but in reverse. Hakol hofech leolam acher, and everything becomes a different world, otherworldly. Me'ein olam haba. Ha'ochel hofech le'shulchan gavoah. Food is now exalted. It's not just food. Haneros hofachos le'menoros hamikdash. And candles become the menorah of the temple. Habagadim, the clothing, hafchem lebigdei kahuna. Those are now the clothing of the high priest. So there's a transformation that takes place on Erev Shabbos. Ve'harega sheyotzer zos hu rega Kabbalah Shabbos. When you create this, that is Kabbalah Shabbos. Harega shel Kabbalah Shabbos hu rega nifla. That moment of Kabbalah Shabbos is a wondrous moment. Rega shel yishakenim minishikos piu. When we experience what we say shir hashirim, as we were supposed to read on Erev Shabbos, the embrace, the kiss with Hashem. Bo mekabel kol Yehudi neshika kivyochel ma'aseh Hashem Yisparach. We receive kivyochel a kiss from Hashem. Dafka beregoyim elu hayeladim mistovim bechoser mas. At that moment, what are the children doing? They're not doing any action. Yesh litvos osam lo shivos on liyad ha'abba beit knesset. Take them, put them next to their father in the shul, or ima toshivosam liyada acharei hadlakas neros, or at least if you're at home, sit next to one another. The mother staying at home, let's say, when she lights candles, or she goes to shul. To saper lahem sipurei tzadikim b'inyan haShabbos hakedosh, and to talk about stories of tzadikim, to talk about the parsha. Elu regoyim niflaim. These are such precious moments. So he's just envisioning one sort of setup of what could happen, but it's not time to be osik in the mad rush. It's not time to be involved in last minute preparations. Those should have been done, and you should take an active interest in creating an atmosphere of kedusha at that moment as well. Okay. Okay, fine. So kirvat Hashem she'ein v'tara mimil. Closeness to Hashem that you cannot describe with words. And what I'll just add is, from a halacha component, one of the things that we reflect on in this time is the mitzvah of Tosefes Shabbos. You know what Tosefes Shabbos is, right? Tosefes Shabbos is a mitzvah to add on to Shabbos. So you're allowed to add a minimal of. So if you look at the calendar, if you look at like Zmanim, how this works, right? It's halachic hour and a quarter before Shabbos arrives. So you look at any of the Zmanim, let's say you take the Shul app, you go to Zmanim. So you have here the earliest mincha, of course, and then you have mincha katana, which is later. It's 5:20, which will be at 5:20, which is like the later time. Then it's plag hamincha. Plag hamincha is a halachic hour and a quarter before sunset. So 6:55 is plag hamincha. Sunset today is 8:30 because the hours are longer in the summer. So it's longer than an hour and a quarter. It's a halachic hour and a quarter. In a perfect day, it's 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., right? That's the perfect day. So it's 1 hour is an hour. But on a day in which the hours are longer, Shas Manios, so the halachic hours are a little longer. And so grab Plaga Mincha. So that means that if you are making an early Shabbos today was early Shabbos, 6:55 is the earliest you could daven. So everyone's like, why don't we have early Shabbos? We have 7 o'clock is early Shabbos. The earliest you could daven is 7. It's like 5 minutes later. So that is early Shabbos. So that's Tosefes Shabbos. We take in Shabbos as early as Plag Hamincha. Shaz Manias, meaning an hour and a quarter in halachic hours prior to sunset. That would be the earliest possible time. So
light also.
Yeah, taking the Shabbos. Now, if one person in the household is going to shul and someone's staying home, the person staying home actually should light at the time when Kabbalah Shabbos is taking place. That's important.
Which is the hour and a quarter before?
Halachic hour and a quarter. What about it?
No, like you said, if someone goes to shul and you're home and you're doing the light.
Right. So you want a time lighting around the time they're going to be doing Kabbalah Shabbos. So whatever. So let's say they're davening at 7 p.m.
Yes.
So, anywhere right around 7, 7:10, something like that.
Okay.
There are days in which you can't light right at Mamish at 7. I mean, it's going to be a little different, right? Because it's planned to be a little later. But anyway, the point of all of this, why we're accepting Shabbos early, is not because it's convenient, because Shabbos is so late, and otherwise you'd be eating at 9:30. It's because Shabbos is not supposed to be a convenience. It's supposed to be because you waited for Shabbos. You're already early, and now you want to bring in Shabbos early, and you're being Mosif Kedusha ala chol. Right. So it's that halacha reflects this idea of Kabbalah's Pnei Ashchina, and all of the davening we're doing. He's adding more to it. We do Kabbalah Shabbos. We have the Lechodadi, but he's adding more to that. He's saying your Hanhaga, your clothing, the way the table is arranged, the way that people are talking, the calm in the house, right? You've already, you're not doing your last minute malachos. Ashernis amek me'at be'inyana shel Kabbalah Shabbos. We can go deeper into this idea. Negalet, we reveal ki yesh kan asek miuchad shel shira. There's a special element of song. It's not just about Kabbalah Shabbos, but also about doing it with song. Still with the breath here. Yeah, it takes a while, I guess. So there's a Asik Miuchad Shel Shira. Potchim v'omrim lechu niranana la'Hashem. Let us go and praise God. Lashon Rina, niranana. Rina is one of the words for song. the Shira. I know someone named their kids, Titza Chefa, Ava Vachva, right? They name all their kids.
I thought Rena was happiness, no?
Rina is a song, is a happiness that happens through song.
I see.
Right. Liranein. Rananu. And Lashon Rina V'Shira. V'yesh K'af Ke'ela. Hanogim Lomer Kodem Es Shir Shirim. Shkula Shira. Some say Shir Shirim, which is a song. V'achar Kach Magim L'Chun Ranana. Then after Shir Shirim is L'Chun Ranana, so the Sfardim actually schedule in their davening prior to L'Chun Ranana, they'll say Shir Shirim. They Shir Shirim a certain time. Then after that, they're going to have L'Chodadi. I mean, rather, Kabbalah Shabbos. Yeah.
Why are there some people who are adamant about not starting Shabbos early?
One of the reasons is because there's a couple things. One of them is that they don't want to do it if it's being done out of convenience, meaning specifically accepting Shabbos early out of a sense of, oh, it's early Shabbos, because I don't want to start at 9:30. So if that's the reason you're doing it, it's a problem. That's one of the explanations.
Yeah, but they don't have to do it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, they obviously acknowledge the idea of just have Shabbos, but that's part of it.
I mean, for health reasons, some people can't wait that long, they're on medications or whatever. And I think it would add to your enjoyment of Shabbos if in fact you were feeling.
If you have to eat at 10 p.m. Yeah, I know. I think there's a crossover between comfort and sort of spiritual justification. There's a crossover between those two. Okay. So let's say I lost the place now. Then there's Mizmor Shir Shabbos. Shabbos nichneses kol ha'avoda hi avoda shel shira. The avoda that upon the arrival of Shabbos is an avoda of song. By the way, in the Beis HaMikdash, the avoda of the Leviim was song. That was their work. Their job was work. I spoke about this a few weeks ago. The Leviim would be trained from a young age to sing. If their voices went bad, they'd be thrown out like a 13-year-old in Yerach Me'al Begun in Miami Boys Choir throws them out at a certain age because they start to sound like frogs, and you then would have to find some other thing to do. The Rambam says, I think Yerali, that they probably would work as Mishorim, they would work as the gatekeepers. But meaning he doesn't say it with confidence, meaning the central role was clearly singing. And maybe they would have a secondary role of locking the doors. So clearly the expression of avoda in the Beis HaMikdash was in the mode of song. And they all played musical instruments, and they all had talents that was, and it was developed for years. You would go to school for 5 years. So you learned either your voice would be developed or you'd play an instrument, right? One Nebuch Levi gets the triangle. Everyone gets a different, everyone gets something.
Stu, they make him hold up the sign over his face so he wouldn't see during their.
Kind of Levi is he,
Yeah,
right?
he's a Levi, and my husband, too, has the worst voice in the world, both of them. Yeah, they're sort of pathetic.
It happens. It happens.
Okay.
They'll stand. They'll be the gatekeepers.
It would have been the gatekeeper.
They'll be the gatekeepers. Plenty of gatekeepers. Yeah,
It's funny.
it's nothing wrong. If you want to serve in the Israeli army and you're one of 70% of the soldiers are not doing combat. 70%. No shame in doing anything, something other than combat if you can't physically do it. Or Shirut Lumi is a beautiful thing. And by the way, I find out more and more, men do Shirut Lumi also. Why not? There's wonderful things you can do. Yeah. And there are men who wear skirts. No, but Shirut Lumi is also a wonderful thing, and it's considered very mechubad in Israel. Like if you do Shirut Lumi in Israel, you didn't have to. You had an exemption. You had a physical element. You didn't have to fight in the army, and you went out of your way and did this for a year or two. You're considered a very respected person in Israel. And women who don't have to serve in the army and do that, extremely looked up upon. So I know because we were discussing a certain relative, one of my children who's in Israel now cannot serve physically in the army. So we were talking about these things. So anyway, so the Levium, we see that the main expression of joy was song. But Yeshnam, and that's what we do on Shabbos. We become little Levium, right? We're all We're all mimicking that. Yishnum dvarim she'efshar l'ta'er osam b'milim, ach yishnum dvarim ke'ilu she'ein shum efsharot lahasbir l'ta'er otam. There are things so profound and beautiful and so evocative that you can't even use words to. Words can't describe. L'dugma, adam ko'ev mashu. Person feels pain. Im yifgosh ke'es chaver sheme'olam lo chaver ke'ev kolshu. If you go to a friend who's never experienced pain, ein mitzius shiucha lahasbir lo mal miskavim omro ko'evli. How can you explain pain? It's like explaining the color orange to a person who's been blind since birth. Doesn't make any sense. Right, it hurts me. Hu niskar b'ke'ev shehu chash mevin lama kavana. Only if someone has, when you say ko'evli, he remembers, oh, I remember a cave. I remember I had that pain. And he understands what is the other person talking about. Rabbi Levine, the Tzaddik V'Shalayim, said that one time he went into the hospital, his wife's leg was hurting her. He walked in and he said to the reception, they said, what's wrong? He said, our leg hurts us. That was his answer. Rabbi Levine understood that her pain was my pain. Davar nosaf, shalonitin l'taro. There are other things you can't explain with words. Tam shalochel. It tastes great, it tastes delicious. Right? It's heavenly food. Nitin lomar al ochel, shu mar, o shu matok. It's a little bitter, it's sweet. Jews have a lot of expressions for describing their cake. It's rich, it's too rich. Right? I don't know, we have a lot of words for food. It's like, we're like the Eskimos of food. Or for snow, they have a million words for snow. We have words for food, and so they, you describe the food in certain terms. But explain what bitter is. What's bitter? Well, it elicits a response on the certain component of your tongue's taste buds, the ones that detect bitterness. What is bitter? Bitter doesn't make any sense. What's sweet? If you want to explain sweetness, you remember you ate something sweet once? Oh, Masha, Argashta, what you felt then? That's what I'm experiencing now. But you can't explain to someone what sweet or bitter is. The proper language, what is the proper language for expressing something that doesn't have words? Yashira, that's song, and zimra, music, right? Music, song, that's the mode of expressing an experience that is associated with the physical action. Kishishomim shiro, when you hear a song, mishu bal nefesh adina, if you're a sensitive soul, bal ozen musikalit, person who has a musical ear, nene matslalim ma'angim, you enjoy the arrangement of the instruments, the pleasant arrangement. Aval mishish sichlo gas libo atom, person who has a thicker. There are people who they're not as sensitive to music, right? They just don't. It doesn't do it for them. And those are the people who like pop music. And ve'ozno eina morgelet b'shmiat slilim adinim, and they're not sensitive to hear pleasant sounds, and to hear sensitive music, right? Sensitive to music. Choshev shutzoik. That's just yelling. That's not yelling. That's like the difference between someone who appreciates rap or heavy metal and the other person says, that's not music. What are you talking about? If you listen to what's going on, it's art, but you have to listen to it. You have to really be sensitive to it, right? So there's a and even now the computer. I was joking about pop. Even the computer generated music that they're putting out. That's all basically computers. Even that has something to it. That is an instrument as well. This is a musical instrument, just not a very cool one. It is a musical instrument. Auto-tune is a type of instrument, right? Now they have, it's amazing stuff. They have this AI poetry and AI music that's being put out. There was a song that came out years ago, it was an AI version of a Nirvana song where they took a sampling of all thousands of lyrics and the voice, and they basically recreated a song that sounds exactly like it could be Nirvana. They take the style. So the point is that you do have an idea of music, but once you appreciate what's going on there, what goes into arranging that, what goes into it. Because if you don't have that sensitivity, it's noise, right? Shabbos nichneses. Shabbos comes in. Zochim lechazu kirbat l'Hashem yisparach. You're zocha to a closeness with Hashem. She efshar lahasbir oso lit'ara b'milim. And I can't put words into it. What I'm experiencing now, Shabbos is here. You want to know when I think of the joy of celebrating the arrival of Shabbos? I worked in a home called Women's League for many Shabbosim when I was in college. So men with special needs. It's called Women's League, but there's only men in my league. It was like HASC Women's League. It was just the name of the charity. Yeah. And I would get the money I needed for my wedding ring that I bought for engagement there, and worked many Shabbos. Sometimes every other Shabbos, I went down the subway from YU to Brooklyn, and I had the home of the older gentlemen. In HASC, they call them yaps. I don't know why that's the term, but meaning generally everyone over 55 or 60 in the house.
Yeah, I did have some.
And they call yaps, right? So you probably know the chaver in my house. I had the oldest living man with Down syndrome at the time in my home, and he was a klepto, and he stole my wallet. And then one time it took me 48 hours to find it. I stayed longer to find it. It was buried in his underwear. He stole it, but he was a character. I had another fellow in the house, right, named Jacob, and he was such a personality. He looked like just some gentleman in the shul, you know. He wore a Kangol cap and his jacket, very distinguished and shaved, and he had a mustache, and he looked like a normal person, and he was, but he was an IQ of like 60 or something like that. He's such a character, and when Shabbos would arrive in Brooklyn, there was a siren that goes off. Yeah, Brooklyn, and most of Brooklyn is a siren that goes off for Shabbos. In Muncie also they have it. From communities, it's an amazing thing. And we just have it on every third Tuesday of the month. And right, first Tuesday. Oh, third. I'm on a different count than you are, but the same date. Right. I started my count at a different point, but yes, it's the first Tuesday of every month. I didn't realize that. Okay. So the siren goes off, and Jacob would get all excited. He goes, oh boy, and start jumping up and down on the couch. It's here. Shabbos is here. Oh boy. He was already dressed and was already shaved and was ready. It was amazing.
So nice.
Like this was Kabbalah Shabbos. And I invited him to my wedding. He Sapara only heard about him, didn't know who he was. Came out to her, like, wish Mazel Tov Kala, and Bowie Kala, right? And he grabbed her hand and crushed it. Completely, he was strong as an ox. And he completely crushed it. He's like, why is this guy killing me? But okay. Exactly. He had a very strong grip. One time, the boss in the house didn't let him. I guess they felt he was tired. Didn't let him go to Shabbos Kodesh. His whole life was Shabbos Kodesh to go to the shul there, and he sat there the whole time. He's like, with his face down. So what's wrong, Jacob? He goes, Shabbos Kodesh. I want to go to Shabbos Kodesh. So I said, why can't you go? He said I can't go. I said, okay. So I said, what's so special with the Shabbos Kodesh? He goes, I'm sponsoring this week. I said, oh, how much should it cost? It goes 200. Very nice. He had like a whole routine. He would be like, the whole thing with him was like, he always knew, what are you serving? Harrington gefilte fish. Okay. No, he didn't sponsor. It was in his head. He also says he's going to Israel every week. He's driving to Israel. He's going to take his Chevrolet Buick to Israel. And his Chevrolet Buick was parked it was in the garage. I said, what's wrong with the flat tile? The whole routine. Where's the shop? It's on Delancey and Pitt. Very good. How much does it cost to get to Israel? About 200. Yeah. He had a whole routine, but in his simplicity, he had this amazing love for Shabbos. He wanted Shabbos to go. And it was his whole life, Shabbos, Shuddis. And as brilliant as we all are, right? Many of us don't ever in a lifetime ever have that kind of anticipation for Shabbos. So we'll finish this section. Words cannot describe its song. Song is that. Nesha Shabbos, he ha'omek shel hargashas mitzayim belev ha'miyehudi. Shabbos is the depth of experiencing a feeling in the heart of the Jewish nation. It's the time that we encounter Hashem. You can't explain with words. All we can say is, I'm going to sing a song for Shabbos. Tov lodos Hashem. It's good to praise Hashem, to thank Hashem. Zetov, ma b'diuk tov. What's so good about it? Chocolate, sukaryot. What's good? Candy, right? Lo. L'zamer l'shimcha el yom. Yoser mizeh einot yichol lo. There's nothing greater than singing to God. We call Shabbos, that's Shabbos. Medubar b'davar shu tamun v'amok b'lev yudi. So nekudas hakesher shebeneinu levein Hashem. The point of connection between us and Hashem is precisely that idea of singing the song L'chavod Shabbos. So this will stop for this week. Yeah.
Is that why we do 0 at the table?